All right, what's up, everybody? How's it going? How's it going?
Pretty good. How are
Doing
you?
good, doing good. So, yeah, on this episode of Temtem Up Podcast, we're going over bug fixes on the competitive, only the competitive bug fixes, not all of them. We're going over the best teams that performed in tournaments and the upcoming tems that you should look out for this week. Yeah. So with that being said, get into the podcast. How was everyone's week?
It was good. Did a lot of battles. Lost full, malded multiple times. Um, but yeah, I mean, other than that, it's just been like a really great week of competitive Temtem. I've had a lot of fun with everything.
Yeah, true, true. Like a lot of different things in the game coming up. I mean, that's how it usually is. There's always phases in the game. Talked about that before, where, um, yeah, everybody finds one thing that just works right now, and then people are like, okay, how do we deal with that? And then it just is a full cycle, and it's just a stepping ladder until somehow there's a team that just can't be beat, right? So,
Yeah, turns out Rise is actually okay.
yeah.
Rise is decent.
How about,
You were right. You were right.
so, Servo, how was your week of Temtem?
It's been pretty good. Still trying to find out ways to work with Zazar, but pretty limited.
Working with Cesar?
Bro, Zazar is literally like my Rhino. Like your Zazar is my Rhino. Sometimes you just gotta you gotta split the path. You gotta walk a different
Bro,
direction.
I mean,
I'm still using it though.
true. You actually are. I saw you using it against me a couple times. How do I forgot to turn off notifications. Oh no.
No.
Actually,
Yeah,
a scuffed
I
stream.
know. Anyway,
The scuffed cast.
Exotic and Nimra TV, thanks for the follow. But yeah, so a couple things to think about with the bugs. We can get into bugs. So yeah, Naga and Mooflank got some patches. Those are probably the only two competitive bugs that were like influential that either made like improved or made a time worse. So Servo definitely talk more about those two, starting with Naga.
Is the Naga one just the switched on traits?
Not just that, but also Water Custodian.
How it actually works now and doesn't actually get yourself
Yes.
killed by having a Volcrane in your party?
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much it works the way as intended. If there's a single target water move, it just redirects it to Naga. Pretty self-explanatory. If it's AoE, it won't target both, so you will still get hit. You can't cheese mix that way. And that's pretty much it with Naga. But with Mooflank, pretty much just it fixed the problem that you could say people were abusing, but honestly, it was something that you could recreate easily. You knew exactly how it worked, how the if you're the final 10 back in, the turn didn't actually end, so you got the unnoticed notice at the end of the turn that wasn't finished yet. That's now fixed, and I don't know if the other one's fixed. If you kill a Tem that hit you earlier, I'm not sure if that one's still fixed.
I did see it was fixed.
I think
yeah.
that is.
I did it a couple times and tested it on stream. It's definitely fixed.
Okay, well, so with that, that's been fixed, so it pretty much just works. As long as you hit it, it will not proc.
Definitely good to hear. Yeah,
Yeah, I lost so many games from Mooflink coming in at the end and all of a sudden having a prio goring. I'm just like, okay.
yeah, and
Or a prio based
something to
up.
think about that too is, Mooflink with the unnoticed trait, it's already good as a starter, right? It forces the turn one starts. When something has one hold moves that actually deal damage, but no zero hold moves that do a lot of damage, Mooflink does really well, right? It gets hit on turn one, but it usually doesn't die turn one, unless there's a mental type. So when you used to run the Scunch Mooflink, Mooflink would have to get attacked, and Scunch would get suplex off because Mooflink wouldn't die in turn two, and then also it would get Ninja off because it's just going to be faster than the Tems. So it's always been a strong starter. A lot of people have been running double mental to be able to deal with that. Kinu obviously being the most popular, and then now with everything going on, Naga. We'll talk about that later when we go through the tier list, but also mix, right? You have 5 different mental types that you could deal with Mooflink. You could have Pooch, Naga, Kinu, Mix, Orange, and Adora Boros. Those are like really the only 5 that are being ran right now. and the two most popular are Kinu and Naga. So now that those two are most popular and it fits teams really, really well, you don't need to like it's hard to run Mooflink, right, as a starter. And with the bug with Unnoticed, it allowed Mooflink to have an extra role. It had an end game role where, okay, awesome. Well, if I can't use it in the beginning of the game because you have two mentals, now I can put it in my team and use it as like kind of like a 4v5 tem, and then I switch it in on a death on the last tem, and now I can kind of like maybe have a chance to sweep the game because now I'm faster than most of your tems if there's no turbo off. Well, now it lost that entire role completely, which is a pretty big nerf, right? So I feel like Mooflink is only good on turn 1, and it's not very good in the mid and late game. And I think that's what the patch did for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I still think Unnoticed is better, but a lot of people are putting Hurry War in with Naga so that they can't, outspeed their own Naga plays whenever they decide to bring Naga back in. I think that's interesting that Hurry War's getting more use because of that.
Yeah, I think they're pretty close in value now, honestly. Only because there's like cheeses you can do with Mooflink now, even if there is like a mental type on turn 1. Since a lot of times Nagas don't run Beta Burst, they run Madness only, so yeah, it's definitely something to think about now that if one trait gets nerfed, the other technically gets more playability, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're gonna definitely see how that factors in, and later on, later this week, how people are gonna be running it, and yeah, and the Water Custodian, it's fixed. You can actually use it. There's not too many waters being ran right now, but I mean, at least if you don't want Deceit Aura or you have a team that's not based around it, Naga by itself is still pretty good. Good speed, good special attack, and a pretty good move pool, honestly. I don't think it's that bad. Everyone's special ability is really strong, so
Yeah. I think I'm gonna have to look at Water Custodian quite a bit more in the coming days.
for sure. And yeah, so now that we went through the bugs, we are gonna go through the tournaments. Tournaments here, we're gonna go through PlusOP Weekly. We're gonna talk about the top 8 stats. We're gonna talk about the finals teams. So again, I always forget his name. It's OI something. Oiprox, right? Oiprox coming in.
I believe you are correct.
Yeah, Oiprox has been making top 8 stats for the PlusOP Weeklies, and they look awesome. And we're gonna switch over screens to check that out really quick. And yeah, so we have here the PlusOP Weekly Tournament 21 data analysis. Oiprox has been making this every week now. I absolutely love it. I don't think anybody in the community doesn't like this, so definitely checking this out. Yeah, go through the top 10 for Servo, and yeah, games played and win percentages. What stands out to you on this list?
Honestly, what stands out? Not really anything. To be honest, this has been pretty meta for the past few weeks. Kinu and Gyalis now rising over Voloran and Volfi. I feel like Volfi was just a newer tem and play could just be easily abused. Voloran was because everyone had it, everyone knew how busted Voloran was, so they kept it at the beginning. Now, if people realize Kinu still busted and Gyalis still pretty good, even past the nerfs. So that's why people are still playing it. Volfi's still high up there because it does check waters very well. And honestly, it's kind of why waters have been suffering a lot lately, is because of one single tem. Not to mention Team Elusive kind of busted.
Yeah, Team
Mix is up there due to the fact that you need 2 mentals now in this meta. Usually people opt for a Kinu Mix. It's usually just the default because it gives you another crystal. It's a good tem, and when Popular Masters activated, it can just win you games downright. With Voloran, like I said earlier, same thing. People are kind of choosing to go off it. However, it still has its own value. It's just not as meta as it used to be. Two-Vine, people have kind of gotten away from it, but they're still on top of things, as in terms of some people want to bring triple crystals, as everyone's bringing 2 mentals. Right now, crystals are really the only way to deal with mentals. Obviously, we have electric tems, but we don't have electric Tems.
Yeah, we have Grumper.
Moving on with Mooflank, pretty much people have gone away from the Mooflank Scunch combo that was very ramped in at the beginning, obviously, because nobody really knew about it. Obviously, people were aware of it and now have the double mental to check it. And with Nagice coming into more people's teams because people can afford it, it's definitely being a lot different seeing the kind of plays people make around those kind of Tems. Again, with Nagice, it's just high damage as well as just mind games, allowing to bring other things you wouldn't expect, especially having basically a 4-prio sleep, as well as a 4-prio move, and then AoE water damage on top of that. Just high amounts of damage you just can't prepare for if you're not ready for it. With Scunch, it's pretty much just high damage. Again, Scunch got the new move, Savage Suplex. That was basically the Oshi that we didn't know we didn't need. Absolutely busted. And then moving on with Size Munch, it's just the all-around good Tem. I still think it's kind of funny how we have Naga and Size Munch, and yet where's Tortnite to be found? Well, that will come up later. With Size Munch, it's just high damage, being able to heat up the blow through half resistance, and then just Size Munch strikes both slots. It's just so much damage really fast. You could break a team's walls very fast. Moving on to kind of the honorable mentions on the bottom, or it's more towards the middle. Cernith, Ukama, and Adoraboros. These are more just the filler Tems. I think a team is very good with it. I honestly really do enjoy Cernith just bringing nature damage, which I think is really good in this meta right now. There's obviously not as many earths and waters as you may like, but it does do a lot of damage. Ukama is kind of the same thing. It can counter Mooflank as well because of its low special defense, and it's just if you're picking Ukama, you're not really in a situation where you're not going to get value out of it, like never get value out of it. Like Ukama always ends up killing something. Let's just be honest. And then Adoraboros is just a good filler role, as in if you need another mental that just needs to fill that specific role, Adoraboros got you covered.
Definitely, I agree with all it.
Adoro with the 0% win rate. Don't know how much it has you covered though.
I mean, it's over 4 games.
The thing about Adoro, yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know, dude. The thing about Adoro is just like it's so awkward to play, and the times where Adoro comes in at a good spot, I feel like it doesn't get enough value as it should, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of Adoro. Whereas before, like, running Mix Adoro was one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, I mean, what I was doing, if anybody was ever watching with Adoro, is I use Toxic Skin instead of Synergy. And then I run Strange Vest on it. I was just testing it out. It was winning me some games on ranked, but, like, it's hard because it feels like you need 2 mentals. Otherwise, they ban 1 mental if you're only running 1. And if they have Scunch Mooflank, you're just have to ban Scunch. So if you're willing to do that with only 1 mental, then definitely go for it. But Adoraboros, it seemed like it got good value, but there's times in which it feels like it's just taking up a slot on your team and you wish you had something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think Toxic Skin is actually pretty brilliant over Synergy Master. I give you props for that. Like, some of the plays you were making where they just couldn't attack you or they get ticked for 3, like, this feels bad.
Yeah. And with the awards here, with the most hated, ban percentage 52% for Voloran. I think the reason why it's like not Kinu right now is because there's a lot more Nagas and Size Munches in play, along with Cernith. Having these in the makes it to where it's super weird for pick ban phase. Normally in past patches, it's like, okay, Kinu's too strong, we just ban it. Okay, Gyalis is too strong, we just ban it, and then we can deal with anything else with depending on your team layout. But with how the game is right now, it's literally you have to ban based on what you can deal with and what you can't deal with, and usually it's typing. It's not just I can never deal with Gyalis because if it heats up and has +1 buff, it's like crazy. So that's definitely the difference in the patches now. And a lot of people, it's hard to deal with Voloran, right? There's so many different Volorans running around. There's speed attack, how it was previous patch. There's now speed special attack running around as well, hitting extremely hard blizzards and doing okay wind blades to save stamina, along with hitting with extremely hard hyperkinetic strikes that you would think shouldn't do as much damage as they should. And then there's also anaerobic. So there's literally 3 different types running around right now. And it's I feel like every single Valorant has different TVs too. Some are running aerobic with like HP speed, some are speed special attack, some are speed attack, and then there's anaerobics that it's like, yeah. So there's just so many Valorants running around, it's hard to guess what it's ever gonna be, and all of them are good. Like there's not a bad Valorant out there, honestly. All of them play very well within the comps that people are running, and it's just kind of hard to deal with, honestly.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, Valorant is just one of the strongest TEMs in the game, mostly due to its typing, and the damage output that it brings. Like, you can pressure so many things, and if you get your Valorant set up and then you just like swap out and save them for late game, it can really come in and deal some damage late game. So Valorant can for sure become your win con for a lot of matches.
Definitely. And it's hard too, because usually there's always a threat next to it. So now you have Valorant that you want to kill, but if you don't kill it and it has hyperkinetic active on the next turn, it's like, well, if I don't kill it this turn and it gets a free turn, it's gonna have hyper when it switches in on death, which means something dies. So like, it's
Yeah,
rough.
it's
Yeah, it's definitely rough.
it's kind of like unnoticed move flank, right? Except it gets more damage every time it gets more speed.
Exactly. And then most popular Kinu, I don't doubt it. Kinu is just so strong.
Wow,
Um,
what a surprise.
I think just we're gonna probably say it every single podcast. Protector buff is so good, it's never bad to have Kinu. Like just having protector buff active with a 4 moveset, it doesn't matter what 4 moves you put on Kinu, it seems like no matter what it's gonna get value. Obviously there's an optimal moveset. I'm not saying like you should just throw whatever the hell you want on it, but if you just only switch it in for protector buffs, it's no matter what gonna get value in my opinion.
All I'm gonna say on Kinu is Stonewall looking pretty spicy on it
Yeah,
now.
definitely. A lot of people have been taking off Turbo on Kinu because a lot of people's win comps have been going away, so they don't have to click Turbo as often. And with Naga seeing so much play, you can definitely throw on Stonewall instead of Turbo, or even Sacrifice if you really need to, in order to add more defenses to whatever your win condition may be for the late game. There's usually one Tem, due to the way the game's been being played lately, there's usually one Tem that is going to just win you the game by having to kill 2 or maybe even 3 Tems. Kinu allows for that win condition to have a better chance to do that. And then,
Yeah, definitely. Kinu just sets stuff up to be able to be late game sweepers.
yeah. And then Volfi coming in for the most liked. It has a 91% pick rate. Obviously, it's a great starter. It's a great bench. It has earth damage, but it also isn't weak to what most of the earth Tems are weak against because it has nature involved in it. So having like earth nature is a really strong typing. We talked about it last week. We knew it was like going to be this really strong new Tem that came in, and it's definitely showing it's really strong. So, I mean, here it is. I mean, it's just gonna keep increasing in popularity. I don't know if it can at 91 pick, but it's definitely extremely strong, trapping Tems to be able to get a kill on something, and yeah, I feel like maybe even a higher ban rate later.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of crazy too because Gyalis came in to the meta for the most part to literally be the Volfi killer. That's how annoying Volfi got. Where we were like, okay, what can kill this thing? How do I deal with Volfi? And Gyalis was just like the obvious answer to that.
Yeah, and also Gyalis is typing. We're gonna talk about that with the tier list with Carthh, but yeah, we could say Adorables got a 0% win rate over 4 games. I mean, yeah, we can't really well, we're just gonna throw that out there. And yeah, let's go into the finals of what 2 teams were playing. So of these 2 teams in the PlusOP Weekly Tournament 21, these are the 2 teams that made it to the finals. So we had Tiki Book coming into the finals and Yuukazi. These were the 2 teams. On Tiki's side, we had Scunch, Sizemunch, Volfi, Cernif, Mix, Mooflank, Gyalis, and Kinu. If you want to talk more about like this composition, Servo, it would be really interesting to see your point of view.
This is a very physical comp, pretty much. It wants to get as many perfect jabs out, and honestly, just heavy damage as possible. A lot of times with Size Munch and even Kinu, you can start off with that if their opponent doesn't have a good lead and just hit them really hard. Obviously, I don't know the exact terms of like what Tiki's idea was building this. Obviously, we don't have him on the show, but in terms of this comp, like it could hit you very hard if you're not ready for it.
For sure. And the basic staple of most teams right now running double mental, double crystal with at least 2 fighting. This team running 3 fighting mainly because it has Size Munch and it really wants to get that wreck off. Double nature with Volfi and Cernif. It's just a really good combo. Those two together are insane when they're next to each other. And then move flank.
Technically, even have triple nature too with Kinu being there.
True.
Like that's just so much revitalized potential, so much sustain.
Yeah, I've seen and played a lot against Kinu Cernif on the field, and having double revitalize on the same turn if they're ever faster than you is kind of annoying. And then he has move flank.
Can I get any molds in the chat?
Move flank coming in. Obviously this was during the unnoticed situation with it coming in on the last Tem. It was one of his late game win conditions, so now with that being gone, Tiki might be switching that out for upcoming tournaments. But then we have Uwakazi. Uwakazi had Bolorend, Saku, Nidrasil, Mix, Grandpa, Capire, Gyalis, and Whiplump. With this team, it's very, very, very different. The only 2 Tems that are the same are Mix and Gyalis, being roughly the top Crystal Tems at the moment, and definitely go through this team as well.
Pretty much. Like when you first look at it, you see the top 3. And it's like, okay, Toxic Stall. I got this. I got wins. And then you see Capire and Whiplump, and you're just like, all right, I don't know what exactly this is. But obviously, I went to the finals. So if Uwakazi went against me, he would beat my butt because I wouldn't know what to do against this.
Definitely. I mean, one of the things is when you don't know how to deal with something, it gives the other player an advantage. That's why experience is a huge key when it comes to tournament play. You don't know what you're playing against. You don't know what turns are going to be caused. You don't know how their setups are going to be. And a lot of the setups when I was watching the finals is Uwakazi used a lot of Bark Shield. So if there was ever a time that Nidrasil and Saku could get like a double or even triple Bark Shield off, trying to get +2 or +4 defense on another Tem, not just Tem, Nidrasil or Saku, whether it was Capire, Grandpa, Mix, Gyalis, whatever he knew his win condition was, he would try to get that safe and then be able to use that to be able to win the game. And it was definitely an interesting comp, and having the Whiplump Grandpa, that was always a really good freeze stall that everybody was using freeze with Whiplump with Cold Breeze and using Hypno in order to keep control on the board to be able to keep setting up win conditions and keep pushing out damage whenever possible. Yeah, he kind of had a mixture of both, right? With Saku and Nidrasil. And yeah, it was really fun watching the games with the semis of Uwu. I was watching his games, and I really liked his team comp. I liked how different it was from everyone else. And then watching the finals here, it was definitely a really, really fun game. So what happened with the finals? It happened to be a 2-0. Tiki won 2-0 in the finals here. It just seemed like it was hard for Uwu to push out damage as fast as Tiki could, and he was able to just push down before he could set up any defenses.
Yeah, this was the Scunch Mooflink opener game, right? Game 1 where he banned Mix and then went crazy.
I believe so.
Tiki?
I believe game 1 was super quick.
Yeah, game 1 was super fast because Scunch and Mooflink took over, and then the second game was kind of like a stall game between Cernif and something else, right?
Yes. I know the Cernif was the stall at the end with Cernif.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was going up against. I would assume either Nid or Saku.
Yeah.
But...
I do remember game 1 was definitely like a turn like 3 or 4 concede because he just Scunch Mooflink. Everybody knows when it's Scunch Mooflink and you don't have any bans Mix here because it's his only mental type. There's nothing that can actually kill Scunch or Mooflink before killing at least 2 Tems before one of them dies. And then also pushing out damage for another Tem. And if you kill Mooflink, Scunch is going to be getting Suplex and Ninja every turn after turn 2, and then Mooflank, if you focus Scunch, then Mooflank is going to get an unnoticed procs and just keep killing every single Tem before it can even attack. So it was just a really frustrating situation.
Yeah, huge snowball potential with Mooflink Scunch.
Yeah. So with that tournament for the finals, if you want to look at any of these teams or test them out yourself, definitely just take a quick screenshot and yeah, test them out. They're really good teams. If they can make it to the finals, obviously they're good teams. We don't know exactly their mindsets on how they played them or even their TV spreads, but it's definitely something to test out if you would like to choose their team and pick it up. So another tournament that came out was the PlusOP Monthly. So we don't have a screenshot or graphic kind of like this, but we are going to be looking at just the final Tems that were being played. And this was between Marn Farmer and Plat. And yeah, definitely look over Marn Farmer's team. Tell us a little bit about his team as well.
Marn Farmer, he brought a really strong, really strong team. That's how flustered I am, because he absolutely dominated with his, Mastion, Gyalis, Nagais, Wolfie, Sizemunch, Kinu, Mooflink, and Barnchi. He had a lot going for him in terms of his damage. Being able to set up Mastion with Kinu or even a Nagais to make sure it goes first, it's a lot of damage coming your way, especially with Gyalis or even Mooflink. The Barnchi is more of a suicidal lead. However, if it needs to clean up a kill or even do mental damage at the end, if you're fighting two neutrals, it does a lot of damage by itself.
Very, very true. And something that's been coming up a lot after this weekend is the Naga Sizemunch combo. A lot of people have been testing it together and separately, but when it's together, I think it's doing pretty well for a lot of players, and people are still testing it out. I don't think it's fully developed, but I think next week there's probably going to be some really, really strong Naga Sizemunch combos where they have a really good team fit around these.
I am not looking forward to that.
So Plat's side, taking a look at that, definitely give us some insight on Plat's comp as well.
Rulder! My boy Rhino! He did it! I gave up on you! I'm so sorry! My boy made it to finals!
It's true. He definitely made you proud.
Oh, man.
But pretty much, Matt, or is it Snarl Pat? He definitely has I don't want to say conventional toxic team due to the fact that nothing's really conventional about a toxic team. Everyone plays it their own way, and obviously he played it very well. Having a Nidrasil, a Noxalato, obviously showing previous from J Dragon, he had a Nox, and he brought it to the finals as well. Possibly seeing an upsurge of Noxalatos, you never know. We also have a Mashuk, standard, very good wall. Adoraboros, obviously past win rate, probably not the best, but obviously showing some worth here. Ukama, high damage. Low alley, really good Tem in terms of damage. You have to think, it gets Hypoxia and the new move, Resin Trap. It's not bad options. Rolder, really good for finishing off people hit by a Toxic. If you think you can buff your up to a plus, go to a 5/5 Valash, now I'm going to execute you right back to 0. And then you also have Mastion just doing high damage.
Very, very true. And as I've said before, like, if anybody wants to watch like Plat's games, Plat, I personally believe, is the best toxic team player. He's been doing it for so many months. He has the most experience compared to most players when it comes to toxic comps, and he's literally played so many different teams, like team compositions with toxic comp. It's never like the exact same team. He always finds like little advantages with like other like Tems to be put in their team. This week he put in Noxiatl, and he added in Adoraboros. So two Tems that haven't seen like a ton of play, but I mean, other people have been playing it. It hasn't been going so well. And then I mean, Plat, one of the absolute best toxic team player, comes in and says, "Dude, this is easy, dude. I can take it to the finals, bro. Let's go." And yeah, comes in, and everybody was talking so badly about Roller, like how trash E tier it was, and then he's like, oh, that's bad too. All right, give me Roller too. I'll just take that as well. And then he sets Roller up. I think he played Roller in quite a few games as well. It wasn't just like this bench pick that just sat there and bench warmed. He actually used it and did really well with it, and beat me in it in Swiss rounds. So yeah, his team comp is definitely strong, and I would say if he does give any advice on a toxic comp, definitely take it wisely, because I personally believe he is the best toxic team player for sure.
Yeah, every time I run into him, I'm like, oh no, because I personally, I hate playing against toxic comps. You know my stance on Cernif and toxic and all that and Yggdrasil. But just looking at his team comp, it makes sense, right? Like he has 4 toxic Tems, as well as 2 Tems that can combo with toxic Tems with Ukama and Loli, and then the Mastion for fire damage if he ever needs it, and then Rulder being able to come in if he does let a wind Tem in, so that he can kind of soak up some of that damage that one of those toxic Tems that are weak to wind when it have to take. So I think his team comp makes a ton of sense and super super scary and difficult to play against. I played against him in round 1 of the Temporium tournament, and it was an extremely close match. Like I had to think so damn hard for that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. In this finals though, I believe this one was a demanding lead for Marn Farmer. If you look at the teams and you see how it played out, Marn Farmer's team just does extremely well against Platt's team, and they're both very, very smart players. So it's hard to outplay when Marn Farmer also had yellow side as well. So even if Platt won one game, he still has to win a blue side game, which is, if everybody knows the balance of the game, yellow side has counter pick, so it's a little bit easier to win games on yellow side. Okay, maybe not a little bit. Like, it's a lot easier to win on yellow side compared to blue side. So, yeah, having to at least win one blue side before you can try to get like a best of 3 victory, definitely rough. Since Marn Farmer knows he's getting 2 yellow sides, unless he loses.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult when you're blue side for sure. I feel like you have to have a team comp based around winning blue side.
I feel like with the game right now, there's just so many counter picks. It's hard to not have to make a reactive play on turn 1 towards what they're doing on their counter pick. Before it was like you could pick Kinu Gyalis or Volar Ukama or Volar Mashuk, but nowadays it's like not that easy at all.
Alright. Yeah, it seems like you just lose your leads no matter what when you're blue side, which is kind of tough. You have to really plan really far ahead.
For sure. So with Temporium Weekly, Temporium is back, everybody. They finally got back into the mix with Kisawa here. They saw that there wasn't a lot of interest in the game, so dropped for a little bit, but they weren't out. They were still doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and they come back with Temporium Weekly number 12. In this tournament, they decided to have a best of 1, and in the semis and the finals, they had best of 3. So, it was a very different setup. But next week we'll talk about that on the upcoming events. This upcoming week, they have a very different setup for the rule set. But with the finals here, it was Gold versus Terbie, and yeah, definitely go over these teams as well, Servo.
Pretty much for Gold's team, you might be noticing a theme here, kind of as the meta kind of develops. That we see Akinu, Voloran, just kind of safe picks all around. Size Munch is still there. Skunch doing high damage. Cernif, which is actually kind of a favorite of Gold. I know he's been running it for a while now. I think he was, I don't know if he was the first one to start running a Cernif a lot. I know Gold is a big one, big fan of it. Gyalis, just a safe pick. Nagais, because, yeah, Nagais is pretty good. And then Mastion just for high fire damage.
For sure, for sure. And how do you like this team, Spectruhh?
With Gold's team?
Yeah, Gold's team.
I mean, it just makes sense, right? Like, it allows him to do so much damage. He has a lot of different checks for a lot of different things. And I kind of like, just looking at his team, it's like, what do you ban against this, right? I think his team really allows him to win pick and ban super easily, to be honest. It's really just pick your poison.
Yeah, and this is kind of what it's adapted to. Because okay, so we just looked at both tournaments that were on Friday, right? Quite a bit of teams were running just one size munch or one naga. They were never really putting it together. And then the monthly was right after, and then there was a couple teams running size munch and naga. And then Sunday came along with Temporium, and now Gold is running naga and size munch, just like on Friday monthly. But he saw a lot of potential in Cerny, added that to his comp, and then adding also the Kinu, which all four together is just really strong, and then adding really strong picks that just have really strong single-handed value, being Volarin, Gyalis, Mastion, and Scunch. So it's just a super strong team. It's hard to ban anything. I mean, no matter what, like everything you ban is probably correct if you really think about it. Maybe not Gyalis or Mastion as Terbie's team, but like it's just so hard to deal with everything on Gold's team.
Yeah, and like the other thing is he's even running three melees with Scunch, Sizemunch, and Gyalis. So if you're running one mental and you're like, okay, I'll just take out Scunch, now all of a sudden you have the Sizemunch Gyalis combo, and Sizemunch is still a huge threat within the game. So it really is pick your poison with this. Like, what do you ban here?
Yeah, it's pretty rough. You have to kind of try to choose your win condition around banning one or two, depending on what their first picks are. In this lineup, it seems like the hard carries, if you don't ban it and they ban correctly, is going to be Sizemunch or Sernif. Sernif has the late game stall. Sizemunch, if it gets a wreck off against the right targets, it does extremely well. And then Naga has setups with Mastion and being able to just deal out damage by itself, having Lullaby setups, having Madness setups along with it, being able to stall, and having both of them together just makes it kind of annoying. So it's hard to choose your first ban and play around whatever didn't ban, and then having a second ban to be able to have your team be able to still have what it needs to beat what you're planning on playing against when Gold still bans 2 times. So
yeah, for sure.
And then take a look at Terbie's team here.
Yeah, from Terbie's side, it's actually a really interesting team. Originally, you may look at it and you see Mashuk, Platimus, and Nidrasil, and it's like, okay, Toxic Stall once again. However, as you keep going further down, you see Volcrane, Ukama, Whiplump. It's kind of a mix between Toxic and Freeze, which I really like. Freeze hasn't really been kind of worked on, especially since with the new hard hitters. Obviously 2Kai has entered, but I only know of, I think, Arkham. I know Carthh was working on it, but I know Arkham Knight, he was playing with the 2Y. I think he was playing it in this tournament. I forget exactly where he was doing it, but not a lot of people have worked on Freeze. So I think Terbie was pretty excited to kind of continue and seeing if he can expand upon it. Obviously, it got him to the finals, so he must have found something.
For sure.
Yeah, I actually played against Terbie in top 8. And, my team is, I run double fire, right? So when I see triple water with huge toxic threats, I was just like, oh shit, okay. And I think what I did against it is I banned Platimus and I banned Nidrasil as well, just to kind of stop the double Erosials as well as stop those allergic spreads. But even then, he has 2 waters and I have to pick 1 fire. So it was just kind of a brutal matchup. And having that freeze factor in there as well as being able to poison you, it's a really tough team to play against for sure.
Yeah, and I guess so. You played against Terbie, and then the next round he played against Nico in the semis, and Nico had a triple fire team, with Drakash, Volcrane, and Mastion. So like it was Terbie versus Nico, and it seemed like Terbie just had that counter team, right? He has triple water.
Yeah.
And a Volcrane, so he has 4 threats towards all of the fire. So obviously Terbie doesn't care about fire, so that's 3 things he doesn't have to ban, and it's even five Tems that it's just easier to click the ban option on. So yeah, Terbie had a pretty strong comp. I always love Terbie's comps. He always has something different every week, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, he definitely brings the spice. Like, because when you see those waters and you have fires, you're just like, oh no. But then on top of it, you have to think if he leads Platimus Mashuk, that's 2 Eroshials with synergy that you're getting hit with on each side. So now your leads are being hit with 4x toxic ticks.
Exactly.
It's very scary.
And the way that Gold dealt with this, he did happen to 2-0 Terbie. Gold pretty much used Scunch in order to bring down defenses and deal damage early on. Because Terbie's team is very bulky, relies on poison damage, and then the only burst kind of damage he has is with Whip Lump and Yukama. And I forget if he had anaerobic or aerobic Valoran, but if it's aerobic Valoran, it also has burst damage if it's set up with plus speed. But the only burst damage really is Kama and Whip Lump. So, but Whip Lump isn't a starter, and Yukama typically doesn't go well when it's against a Cernif. So if you wanted to start Yukama, you would have to ban Cernif first pick, and even then Valoran does pretty well against it. So it made it kind of weird for Terbie to be able to start a fast, aggressive situation. And as soon as Gold saw him pick Mashuk or Platimus, he just automatically clicked Scunch and maybe Gyalis or Naga if he really did it. So yeah, it made it pretty easy for Gold to get out his damage before dying.
Yeah, for sure. Those perfect jabs are massive against Terbie's team.
Yeah, and everybody also knows with Scunch, you perfect jab, you suplex, it brings something from 100 to 0 in 2 turns by itself almost every tem in the game. Almost every single tem, instead of maybe Mashuk because it has Parrier. Even with full HP, with how much damage you do with Resistance Badge, perfect jab and Savage Suplex just does so much damage. It's crazy how much damage with -1 defense.
Yeah, and if you look at Terbie's team, he doesn't have any mentals to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, and that made it even harder to have to deal with Scunch because it has no weakness besides the mental. So, all right, so
I think it's really cool though that we're seeing so many different team
oh
comps.
yeah, definitely.
In each final, and just in general, so many people are running so many different things, and I think it really keeps the meta fresh.
Yeah, a lot of teams beforehand, if you saw before Kiswa coming out, it was literally like 6 of the exact same tems, and then people switched the last 2. And that's kind of how it was. And that's why a lot of people kind of like drifted away from the game just waiting for Kiswa, because it was like the same thing, and it was who had yellow side and who was able to set up first. Once it was set up, it's like, okay, I lost the game. But now with this being like everybody's trying to figure out what is the best thing, what counters what, and it's just like a never-ending ladder of figuring out what beats what. It's like new and exciting, right? That's what people want. And I think with upcoming patches to come out, like again, I said this too, we had 6 months before we got Kiswa when the game came out of early access of like closed beta, right? Well, 6 months before it, if you look at the roadmap, every 3 months we're gonna get an island, give or take a week or 2. So
yeah, the future of Temtem is looking bright,
so
and it's super exciting.
We're not gonna have to go through 6 months of the same exact stuff. It's gonna be every 3 months we get new Tems, and we're also getting a patch in between those 3 months, which could change up more of the meta if they do a balance patch in some way while adding more stuff in. So I mean, I personally think there's always going to be more stuff. I don't think it's ever going to be dull. Every week is going to have new things, and then a new island comes out, and it just all starts over again. So it's a lot of fun.
Like the Yeller.
Yeller. All right, so with the tournaments going into review that we just had, now we have our segment that we have. Everybody that loves Carthh, get your yips in chat. Everybody loves Carthh, man. Carthh is a really cool. He's a really cool person. He's been playing competitive. He loved the game and yeah, he innovates and tries to learn new things every stream, trying to create new comps, not doing the same old thing every time. So let's take a look at his tier list. So every week we go through a Carthh tier list. Carthh, presents his tier list to us, and we look over it. We let you guys know what you would like out of this tier list. If you're having trouble with competitive, definitely take a look at this tier list. Think about what you could switch up in your team, and maybe add some stuff. So we give you the tournament team comps that made it to the finals, things that you could, kind of copy paste onto your own team, and then we also give you the tier list that Carthh presents us. So new things to look at every week. It's always going to be changing and adapting and innovating. So you can always see what you would like to add or take away from your team each week. So we now have an S tier. It's been a couple weeks and we have an S tier. So Servo, tell us about the S tier and how you think about these two times.
Well, with the S tier originally being kind of this meta warping, kind of like you're going to want this on your team or you have to prepare for it. I mean, Naga, we all saw this coming. They finally fixed Water Custodian. It's S tier. It's broken.
Yeah, okay.
No, the Seed Aura is just, one tem has it and it changes everything about the game. Being able to switch turn orders from just being ultra prio to just one prio really changes the way you think, especially in how many comps just get destroyed by it.
Absolutely. And
yeah, that's like the definition of meta warping, right? It's something that totally flips everything on its head and you have to figure out how to counter it. And if you can't, and if you're not prepared for it, Naga destroys you.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week too. We thought Naga was going to be strong, and we also said not everything is figured out yet, right? There hasn't been enough theory crafting in however many days the patch was out, like 4 days before a tournament, and then 7 days until like we had the first podcast for it. So like, it's starting to get more and more figured out. People are understanding a cool concept where you run a really slow tem like Mastion, or even Volcrane to deal with something that would counter Naga on turn 1, right? Because it's usually like Cernif or it's Volpi or even Tuvine. And now if you have Deceit Aura and you have a really slow tem that also counters what counters Naga, it makes it a really brutally disgusting turn 1 setup for whoever's playing Naga.
Yeah, definitely. Like even if you try to run Volfi into Naga, like the only damage move that you can really do with Volfi is plaguing it, and that's 3 prio. So you have to have a Volfi that can tank Naga to be able to take him out.
Not just that, but what you were saying of Plague being 3 prio, with Deceit Aura, Naga has Madness buff. So Madness buff goes off before Plague does, which means you get the +2 special defense buff, and if you already put a Kinu next to Naga, that's +3 special defense before Plague even hits you. So it's almost like you can't die to special damage on turn 1, especially in tournament play. In tournament play, people are running 1 SV Nagas, so it's slower than normal, which means its 2 prios are pretty much just never going to get outsped. Well, I guess it gets outsped, but it flips. So, yeah. The only 2 10s that actually beat this, I was looking at this, Calibus with Toxic Ink, you can have a 50 SV Calibus, and it's 4 speed less. I believe it might be slightly slower than that actually. It's slower than Naga with 1 SV. And the other one is Babawa. Babawa has Sharp Leaf as a 2 prio though, so you don't actually deal a ton of damage on turn 1 with it. But if you combo it with something else, then you can one-shot Naga. But with Calibus, you can Toxic Ink with full attack, and it actually kills Naga on turn 1 after a Madness buff, even with +1.
Calibus with full attack, Toxic Ink kills Naga?
Yeah, it kills on the tick.
Wow.
With a Madness, if it Madness buffs.
Tuckma Math's Naga's in there.
Yeah. But yeah, so definitely Naga getting more and more figured out. And think about it, it's only been 2 weeks. There's still more things to figure out about Deceit Aura, so this could get worse. So
yeah,
something to think about.
Naga's scary.
I was to say, you guys are freaking about killing Naga turn 1. I'm going to kill it turn 2 with my Frond Whip Typhoon.
Frond Whip Typhoon.
Alright, now let's...
I don't know. He's kind of down there in the batter niche.
I don't know.
Let's see it. Bring him up.
Bring him up to below average.
Yeah, there you go. Rolder jumped up and he got second.
Alright, so let's talk more about the S tier on Kinu.
I say, pretty much with Kinu, what do you expect? Protector buff is just how it is. +1/+1, increasing your defenses by 50% is just that. Especially in the meta around perfect jabbing, it obviously can counter it, but especially with the Kinu's typing, before it was a hindrance to have it on your team, now it's a benefit with the way the meta is shaping up.
I can definitely agree with that. I'll always
Yeah,
be behind
Kinu
Protector buff.
snowballs.
No balls.
Yeah,
Oh man.
Kinu snowballs everything.
Yeah.
It literally just sets up your win con like we were talking about earlier in the podcast.
Yeah. And not only that, now I was talking prior, Kinu is now running a lot of stone walls because people are not running turbo. Running turbo can be obviously a disadvantage if they're running Naga. So if you have a turbo type of team, you have to ban Naga, which opens up even more win conditions on the enemy. So having Kinu and Naga, you're gonna get your stone wall off also on turn 2 before you get hit. So you can set up Naga plays very, very efficiently if you leave Naga and Kinu open on turn 1, but also Naga with a slow acting Tem against Crystal that does well against Crystal also makes it rough. So there's so many different setups with Naga, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, Naga just makes you think so hard about if you're letting it in, what is your counter?
And remember, you're most likely going to always go second with how your team with 3 prio moves, even 2 prio moves. Normally, unless you are not playing in tournament and you're playing ranked ladder, one of the only Tems that is slower than Naga, so it goes first, is Tuvine. And like I said, he can just run a Mastion or something and switch out if it really wants to. We're gonna decide on eating an Embers from Mastion or Embers from Volcrane. It's kind of like he's happy with it.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about the A tier here. Not too much have switched, honestly. So yeah, Volphy, Gyalis, Voloran, Tuvine, Size Bunch. I'm pretty sure the only thing that changed with it was the Gyalis. So Gyalis was ish tier, like on the border, right? So yeah, talk to us about Gyalis and why it's seeing so much play.
I mean, it's obvious, right? Gyalis, still pretty good.
Pretty good.
No, but honestly, it's kind of a mix between its stats are still busted. It's still a high defense for just a glass cannon, which should have been a glass cannon, but it's not. 60 base defenses. That's literally double Pocus. But it's going along the lines of it's still the fastest Tem in the game. Well, it's tied between Ukama and Oshiara, but obviously speed isn't the only thing you need. Otherwise, why is Oshiara an E? But it's the coverage moves what it has. Being able to do melee damage and crystal damage, that's really where Gyalis shines. The only thing Gyalis kind of suffers from now is a slow turn 1. But if you can switch him in with his high defenses, you really don't notice any difference.
Yeah. Like Volphy plague trapping into a Gyalis swap. Oof.
Yeah. Gyalis has always been strong previously. It has the highest effective stat pool, and with its typing as well, usually fighting dies to mental, but since it's crystal, it negates that. And with how much HP it has and defenses, makes it strong, like you were saying. And it's so fast, everything that kills it, because it has fighting, Earth can't attack before Gyalis, and Earth is weak fighting. So with hook kick or even double gash doing a pretty good amount of damage, most double-ins with a 3-power move with your partner is most likely going to kill most Earth Tems that are supposed to kill Gyalis. So the only way to really kill Gyalis is by attacking it with neutral damage, and with how much health and defenses, it takes longer than a turn. So it's pretty rough.
Yeah, I actually don't think there's any Earth Tem in the game that would live like a plague hook kick.
Yeah.
To be honest. I think everything I'm looking at dies.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, again, Gyalis is here to stay, even without heat up, even without Hido. I think with Hido, it would have made things absolutely insane. And yeah, it's still really strong. It still has Crystal Bite, high base damage, Hook Kick, high base damage, Sharp Staff for the 3-prow to finish off kills. So 3-prows never outspeed it. And then it has an okay turn 1 with Double Gash. But you also have to remember, even though it has Double Gash, the only thing that's going to be able to deal to it is Fire Times turn 1. If you have good coverage, you'll be okay. So Volphy, so Volphy is still an A tier here. It's been seeing a lot more play And people also are figuring out better TV spreads to be able to
Yeah.
live a lot more.
No more speed special
Yeah,
attack.
speed special attack. I think that was like the first thing everybody was running, and then yeah, it's a little bit different now. Volarin is going to be up there. Its typing is just as good as Gyalis's, only having electric for its weakness. Same type of thing. It has it has 2 types of damage, wind and toxic, and a lot of Tems are either neutral or 2 times the wind or toxic that are on the field. Being able to also sweep with aerobic Volarin on gaining for wind attack, making it extremely strong for one-shot capabilities with hyper. So definitely strong. So Tuvine has always been a very, very different type of Tem, right? It's not fast, so it's got very high defense and good HP, and it has Crystal Bloom Gatling and Feather Gatling, really strong physical moves, and it kind of just sits there, eats attacks, but also dishes out a ton of damage, unless you get a turbo on it. I think that's like a weakness and a strength with itself, being bulky but also dealing out damage, but it usually never goes first, so it has to take damage before it can deal. I think that's probably the only reason why it's not S tier. What do you guys think?
Tuvine is really good. If he gets turboed and they don't have a Naga on the other side, so assuming that's why you're turboing your Vine, he can turn into win cons so many times. I personally love running Tuvine. It's been one of my favorite Tems to use pretty much the entire time I've been playing competitive. And just the amount of damage he can deal out with those Crystal Plume Gatlings, really, really good. It makes it hard to swap into a 2.
Yeah. And then we also have Size Munch. Size Munch, I believe, went from B tier to A tier this week, and it's been seeing a lot more play. People are figuring out better setups, right? With Gyalis seeing more play, it's easier to put 3 melee into your team. Size Munch, Gyalis, and Scunch, right? Allowing for Wreck to go off easier. So, what do you guys think about Size Munch? What do you think?
I mean, obviously, it's got a good move pool. Being able to heat up, perfect jab, and just monkey smash.
Yeah, and talk about its traits as well. Both of them good.
They say both his traits, they're not bad. They're not as like glamorous as say Naga's. Just one is it uses an earth move and increases its defenses by 1, which is it's all right. You can use it off a stone wall, so you can technically get 3 defenses, but you usually don't end up using that. Most people agree that they want Earthbound the most, but I honestly believe, I think Adikar, you also believe that self-esteem is better, where when it gets a kill, it removes status effects on it, meaning if it's poison, it's about to die to poison. If it does one Size Munch wreck and kills a Tem, it is no longer poisoned.
Yeah. Yeah, I think both traits are good. I just think self-esteem is really better, only because when you have Toxic on it, if people are using your Rush Shield within their team comp or Nidrasil, any sort of Toxic comp, right? Also Trap, whatever it may be, because a lot of times it gets plagued. If you can use self-esteem and be able to get a kill on your wreck, which is kind of the whole point of running Size Munch, when you use that move, most of the time you're either trapped after you use it, so you're gonna die the next turn, or you are poisoned and there's a good chance you have low HP. Based on a lot of the things that I've seen in tournament play, a lot of times Size Munch, after it wrecks, it gets hit once or maybe twice and it comes down really low HP, and it dies to a poison tick or something along those lines. And it usually gets hit by special damage also, right? It gets hit by plagues, it gets hit by like water cannons, aquatic whirlwinds, like Yukama. The only physical damage it actually gets hit by is Cerneef, the water cutting lily. And I think that's still going to do a lot of damage with +1. So the damage is usually already dealt before +1 defense. And I think being able to switch out after you use your wreck to find another time to switch in, whether another time is overexerted, whatever it may be, to get another wreck off, I think that is very, very beneficial with self-esteem at taking off trap, poison, whatever it is that may kill you on the upcoming turn.
Yeah, I was looking at Seismunch too the other day, and I ended up buying a self-esteem one just because of, exactly what you're saying. The fact that he could get a wreck off and live from a poison tick or potentially uncage himself just gives him so much more sustain, and then you have to worry about him again for the rest of the game when you thought he was already dealt with.
Yeah, I don't think either of them are bad. I think they're both good in their own ways. Uh, so it's one of those Tems where it's kind of like pick what you think would be a good benefit. So, um, yeah. So B tier, we can just go over this pretty quickly. Yeah, Scunch is in B tier. You want to talk about that, Servo?
Say it's pretty much just kept in check with his mental weakness. It can do a lot of damage, but if there's one mental, it basically evaporates.
Imagine if he was only 2x to mental, dude. He'd be an A
Oh
easy.
my
Yeah.
god.
So we already talked about our thoughts on Wolfie. We talked about Gyalis as well. So my question is what are your thoughts on move flank now? We kind of touched up a little bit before, but what do you, Spectruhh, you personally, what do you think of move flank now after the patch? Like, what are your thoughts on how it's gonna, like, kind of in the week to come, how he's gonna feel about what's going on in team comps?
Yeah, I think Mooflink is probably. I mean, there's one or two things. Either Mooflink is just going to evaporate from the meta, or everybody's just going to add him back in because people drop their second mental. Like, those are really the only two things that are going to happen. I still think unnoticed Mooflink is insane throughout the game. If you lead with him, he can snowball extremely hard. But with everybody kind of running a Kinu Naga, it's really difficult to run him. Um, and I feel like you can kind of easily replace Mooflink with a lot of other Tems that give you better coverage as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I can definitely see that for sure. Um,
So in the coming weeks, we might see a dip in Mooflink.
yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of people after patch, even before patch, has been dropping a little bit more of move flank, understanding that people are running double mental. Um, all right. So another thing are with the with less Mashooks and even less. Some people are dropping Volant as well. What do you think of Yukama now? Think of Yukama.
I like Ukama quite a bit. I added him back into my team. I ran Ukama week 1 of the patch because I assumed Earths were going to be good, and I was completely wrong with that. So Ukama didn't really do much week 1 for me, so I took it out of my team. I mean, I've redone my team like 4 or 5 times. Anybody who knows me or watches my streams knows that I'm always changing up my team. But the team that I'm running currently does have Ukama, and it kind of keeps those people who run Drakash and Mastion and Volcrane, kind of keeps them in check a little bit because they're always going to have to worry about Ukama. So I don't think Ukama's that bad. Even if they don't have fires, it still does deal massive damage. It's only really bad into the toxic stall team.
Gotcha, gotcha. What do you think, Servo?
I mean, just having high damage, I don't think you're ever going to be disappointed putting Ukama on your team. Just that high damage in general, especially. We even talked about how like Mooflank was disappearing. Ukama is one of those reasons due to the fact of it has like 37 base special defense. So Ukama, I think, can actually like two-shot Mooflank with a water cannon and their aquatic.
Yeah, and there's nothing Mooflink can do. Also, if you combo it with the Toxic Tem, I mean, like if you have a Volar and Dukama opening against something like a Two-Vine, you two-shot Two-Vine too.
Yeah.
So Ukama is extremely strong.
All right. So covering up the Yukama thoughts, I agree with both you guys. I think with a lot of things being switched out, Yukama can definitely see more play. And yeah, Yukama's Water Cannon, Whirlwind, and then if you already have a Naga band on their team, you can also get a Turbo off if you have Turbo. Definitely pretty strong. It's good for setup and damage. So
Yeah, another thing to think about too is if you're going up against a Seismunch and they want to just like insta-ban your Volphy or something, you at least still have another answer to that Seismunch with Ukama.
true. So our So mixed thoughts. I think mix has dropped a little bit in play since last week. People have been switching Barnchi, Naga, and I guess even Adoraboros. So, what do you think on that, Spectruhh?
I think people are just really like understanding how to play against mix. The fact that most mixes are spec'd to be able to live a Crystal Plume Gatling with Rock Shield and a Crystal Bite. Like I don't know. I feel like with all of the AoE moves that are in the game, you can really play around mix a lot easier. And if you know that, like, if somebody leads mix against you, and you have a mix or a two vine or something, and you just energy manip, go for Crystal Plume, like that mix is dead. So
Yeah, I definitely understand
there's
that.
so many combos. Yeah, there's so many combos. If you understand when they want to bring mix in, you can counter it pretty hard, and it doesn't get much value. So against like really top players, mix is seeing a dip in play just because like when you're playing against somebody who knows what to do, it's not going to get much value.
Yeah, this is exactly what I thought before in patch 5 before Kiswa. Um, Mix saw a huge jump with Puppet Master, right? Everybody's like, "Yo, Puppet Master's sick! Like you can do really cool stuff with it." And then with time, people knew how to deal with that more and more and more. When you first get surprised by like a new tech or a new strategy that people run, obviously there's like, "Oh, I can do these 2 or 3 steps," and Mix gets activated and I win the game. Well, once people start understanding all these strategies people are doing, it's kind of like a cheese strat, right? Like if people don't know what's going to happen, obviously it's going to be easier to win with that strategy. But once that strategy gets figured out and people know what the steps are, how people do what they do to get that win condition, it's much harder to actually like excel in that aspect of the game of actually getting Puppet Master on and actually doing it with Sweatband. That's how people were doing it in the beginning, and everybody's just finding more and more answers, and then it dropped off. Kind of like the same thing here. A new patch comes out, right? And you need 2 mentals, so they're like, "Oh, mix can shine again." People didn't know how to deal exactly with mix with its new strategies because they never saw it in this aspect before, and now people are figuring it out more and more. Not just with Crystal Plume 2 Vine or Crystal Bite Gyalis or weakening it and making sure they're safe on their move selection, but also like people are doing some weird stuff with like Naga and Volcrane with Stone Ball to one shot at turn 1. Like there's just like so many different things that actually kill Naga in one shot still, even if it's trying to spec for 2 or 3 other sets of moves that don't kill it.
Yeah, exactly. Like the problem with mix is it's so frail, you can't spec it for everything. And if you do, you just lose so much
You
value
lose so much
in
damage.
terms of its yeah, you lose so much damage. It's like, why are you running it at that point? Like, yeah, its typing is really good, but that's about all it has going for it.
Yeah. Last topic we're gonna go over for our thought process of specific Tems or even types. Fire Tems. So obviously people have been bringing in Fire Tems this week. Last week there was like no Fire Tems at all, right? But now this week it's been getting single fire, double fire, even triple fire. What are your Servo, what are your thoughts on Fire Tems currently, and what do you think it's going to be like in the future?
I think the biggest problem with like fire Tems right now is that you have to bring a bunch of them. A lot of times their synergy is with other fire Tems. So it's one thing to have just 2 fire Tems on a team. You have to have 2 fire Tems also picked in a battle, which there could be some situations where a lot of times you don't want that. Obviously, you need to build a team for that. And with the way the meta is shaping up, it's a little bit easier to do that without all the waters, unless you run the Terbie, which has like 3
Yeah.
waters.
Exactly.
But honestly, no one ran fires before because people thought, "Oh, Earth Island, there's going to be a lot of Earths in the meta," and then Volphy showed up, and that was it.
Yeah.
I think it's really telling too that Mastion's the highest on here, and it doesn't need to combo with anything.
It doesn't at all. I mean, it does well by itself. If it gets like with your normal standard team, right? You're gonna have like most players, I should say, are gonna have like Kinu. So if you don't ban Kinu and it gets a +1 buff, it does pretty well. It can also sit in the back, and you can use your other Tems to deal with whatever threats. Because like a lot of times people are leading Volphy, and that will be their only way to kill Mastion, right? Because if you use a Dust Vortex, it's always faster than Mastion. So some people are getting their Volphy killed early on, and then Mastion's just like, "Yo guys, I'm over here. I'm gonna kill your whole team." And then there's It just comes in, Meteor Swarms on Switch, and then Meteorites before it can even.
Yeah,
like
with the Volphy leads, you got to be careful. You got to protect your Volphy. I think I think Volphy is too undervalued in a lot of players. I think it's one of the best Tems still.
Yeah, I know on the tier list it says it's like right under S tier, but yeah, I definitely agree. A lot of people kind of kill off specific Tems that are needed for the other team's win conditions, and I mean, obviously it's just gonna get better with time. People are gonna get more experience, get better, smarter with team comps and how people strategize. So yeah, and another thing to think about is Bastion doesn't need speed up for one to actually deal a ton of damage, and two, it has cage. A lot of people run cage on Bastion because if you get a good switch in and you have your second Tem, your teammate next to you, has a counter to whatever's on the field, you can click cage and get that kill. So that's also a pretty cool thing. It's not like some people click cage just because it's a move. Like they don't actually think about the turn 2 and 3 after cage. They're just kind of like, okay, that was probably a mistake after they clicked it. But there are a lot of mistake cage clicks. I definitely agree with that. And it screws the player clicking cage. But there are definitely some times where you need this Tem dead. And if it switches out, you're not going to have another time to be able to kill it. And you're going to lose if you don't kill it this turn, where cage is very, very effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I completely agree with that. Cage I think has a very high skill gap because you have to completely understand the situation you're in, and if you can click a cage for free and have it work, you can really like snowball the game from that point.
Yeah.
The only problem with that is one, you have Volphy, you have Grease in the game, there's counters to cage, and then if you cage and they double into anyways and they're not swapping out, now you lost even more value on top of that.
Or if you click cage with Naga out and you don't even think it's gonna go last, that's a brutal move.
Yeah, there's so many factors with cage, but in certain aspects, certain situations, it can be game winning.
Yeah. One thing that's been kind of flipped as well is people have been running Volcrane instead of Bastion only because people are running Bastion. So not only is Volcrane fire, and a lot of people are not running very many waters. So that made Volcrane stronger to be able to deal with matchup with Bastion because people were pairing Naga with Bastion. But then people were like, okay, well, what if we just ran Volcrane instead to deal with the Naga Bastion? Because now Bastion can't kill Volcrane, but Volcrane can kill Bastion. And that's how people started running it now. We saw a lot of that last tournament. It just happened to not get in the finals. It's a strong strategy. I personally agree with it. With so many Bastions running around, if you have Naga on your team, I think Volcrane without Naga isn't strongest. I think Bastion's better by itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. You just have to really be wary, like if you're running Volcrane, just because you're gaining that other advantage against Bastion, but you're also gaining a ton of other weaknesses.
Yeah, and having a one prio move, it can be tricky. You have to, like, obviously being able to use moves before other opponents is kind of like the key of the game. So when you have like a one prio move, it can make things tricky on actually using it, especially since Stone has so many resistances right now, or Earth, sorry.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just, you pick and choose what's good into what, and you kind of figure out how to deal with what you're bad against.
Definitely.
That's Temtem in a nutshell,
So we're gonna take this tier list really quick, and we're gonna say pick one Tem. We're gonna do this every week. And last week I picked Raze. I think Raze saw more play this week. Not as much as I thought, but definitely saw more play. Servo, what did you pick, and how much more play or less play did it see?
Say last week I picked Luali, and I actually did see a lot of play, especially making it towards the finals. I think 2 of the tournaments there were like 2 Lualis in the finals.
True.
Yeah, you called it.
So I called that one very well.
Lolly baby. All right, and then who did you choose?
I think I chose Valash, but it was just saying like how surprising it was that it was down there. For this week, if I was to choose like a sleeper that is going to be seeing more play, I would actually go with Babawa, dude.
Babawa, not Calibus?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Babawa. I feel like Calibus is good in certain situations, but every time I've played against it, it hasn't really done too much, and I know it's strong against certain things, but I don't
It
know.
makes sense.
I don't think you get enough
It makes sense
value.
because its only weakness is Toxic, right? And the only Toxic right now is Valoran that people are running consistently.
Yeah, I mean there are the occasional Platimuses. I think Platimus could be another sleeper too, to be honest. I actually don't see Platimus on here.
It's up in C.
Oh, it's in below it. Okay, it's in D. So both Platimus and
yeah.
Babawa are in D. I
So
think
you-
both of them could go up.
You couldn't see him because he was next to your boy Ronin.
Yeah, I only saw Rhino there, right?
Alright, so what do you think, Servo? What time are you thinking?
I feel like the sleeper for this week, I think it's Tataru, to be honest.
Tataru?
Obviously, because people think, oh, Mouflank's just a better Tataru, why not? Well, you have to realize Tataru has a higher base stat. It gets a major slash, which is more damage. We haven't tested Tataru with resistance badge or war drum affecting it. And if there's ever a Kinu first pick, it can't stay in, otherwise it gets Noxious bombed.
So you think it's kind of like a budget Scunch?
I mean, there's that, but I think Tataru could be the new kind of combo instead of Mouflank. I feel like Tataru is going to see more play. People just haven't figured it out yet.
Tataru does have a lot of utility, that's true. Like with Mouflank, you kind of just click base jump goring and then go from there. Tataru has more of an arsenal to work with.
And it does have sacrifice.
Huh. Alright.
Sacrifice Tataru.
So my choice is, I personally think a lot of people are going to disagree, but I think it's going to be up and coming this week. I think Tukai. With Whiplum.
How dare you try to bring back free?
No, I personally think Tukai. It has a really strong turn 1 with Windburst with how much special attack it does, right? The reason why Grandpa is never a turn 1 starter is because its Windburst doesn't have special attack, and it doesn't actually hit that hard on turn 1, and you usually need Bully active in order to deal a lot of damage with Windburst, since it doesn't have special attack. But Tukai has a very strong Windburst turn 1 into a lot of matchups, and since it's water and wind, it runs pretty well. It doesn't have very many weaknesses besides possibly Valoran on turn 1, and it's a pretty good counter pick.
And you can double Tsunami with Whiplump as well.
I mean, not just that, but yeah. I think it's a more aggressive Whiplump, while Whiplump is more of like freeze oriented. I think Whiplump does a lot of damage. Like Windburst into Tornado does a lot. I mean, I could be biased because I've been playing it, but like I've been doing pretty well with it. So if I had to choose a Tem, I would choose Tukai. Personally.
I mean, that's a sleeper. I'd be personally shocked if we started seeing more Tukai.
And it's gonna be spreader. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think Tukai. I think Tukai. A lot of people are gonna be seeing Tukai this week. Personally.
I like how we all chose something from D. Kind of a testament to the amount of like Tems that are usable.
Like, you know what?
Like just because something's in D, it doesn't mean it's bad, right? Like
But
Acronox,
if it's in E,
Nox.
obviously it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, D is below average, but if the meta shifts, they can do something. E is just like, don't even attempt this.
And say all I'm saying is that Naggeist and Scott and Size Munch or SNA. Why is Tort Knight in E? Like, this is not good showing for the starter.
Dude, what they should switch up. I actually was just talking to Servo about this before the podcast, and I was like, yo, what if they made Tort Knight's ability, because it's 2-hold, right? Because Naga and Size Munch get a 1-hold disgusting amount of damage move, and Tort Knight gets a 2-hold Doom move. So I was like, yo, you only get 8% and you get 16 on synergy. Why not just give no synergy and just make it a 4-turn Doom, 2-hold, and 100%. It just recovers all your health. Like, it sucks all the energy out. Like, you gave them insane moves or an insane trait. Why not give it to Tort Knight? Like, sure, it sounds pretty broken, but I'm pretty sure people would deal with it since it has so many weaknesses.
I hope when you watch this podcast back, you just realize how insane you
Bro,
sound.
think
right
about it. You would have to set up a Tort Knight throughout like 3 or 4 turns in order for it to actually be like a god. And its defenses aren't even that good. Like its defenses and HP all set together. Tort Knight is just like almost like an upgraded Ani here, honestly. Like
Leave him in E, do nothing with him. Please do not make me worry about Doom on turn 2 that full heals
no,
him from
keep
a
it at
fucking
2-hold.
feather
Keep it at
gatling.
2-hold. That's fine. But if it's gonna be
Keep it at
2-hold, yeah,
2-hold?
if it's gonna be a 2-hold, at least make it good. Like compared to Naga and
Oh,
Size Munch,
man.
like they have a 1-hold move that's nuts.
100% heal?
Yeah,
And a
Yeah.
Doom? Bruh.
bro. I mean, it's
Crema,
think about
please,
it. That
no.
move is straight like trash right now. At least give it something.
That was Tort Knight. Tort Knight's trash in general, let's be honest.
I'm just saying, dude.
Honestly,
Trash
even if you gave him that, he would probably still die
Yeah,
before he gets it off.
He would
let's
be low D tier. He would take Rhino's spot, and Rhino would go down to E.
Bro, cheer up Tort Knight.
Cheer up, Tort Knight. Maybe.
I'm having fucking nightmares
I think it'd be kind of cool.
Please no.
But yeah, so that's gonna do it for all of the topics we're gonna go over. I hope everybody enjoyed it. We're gonna talk about some upcoming events. How'd you guys like this week so far? What are your end thoughts on the week? All the tournaments, all of the TV training, leveling, all that stuff.
There's too
I'm
many.
mad at NID players.
Bad and nid players.
I don't like allergic spread in Orochiel. What about you, Servo?
There's just too many tournaments happening. I'm just exhausted.
I think it's fun though. I actually think like being able to choose what tournament you want to play in on whatever days you have free, because a lot of people don't have like every weekend day free, right? Like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So having it like Friday and Sunday, and you kind of get to choose, and one's early and one's late, it's kind of nice. I personally really like it.
Reading the chat right now. Rarzi and Servo.
Yeah, and all right, so upcoming events, we have the PlusOP Crystal Cup. I haven't got full understanding of this yet. Is he running a weekly and Crystal Cup, or is he skipping a weekly and doing Crystal Cup? Because Crystal Cup is August 7th.
That's a good question.
I mean, he stacked a weekly and a monthly on top of each
That's
other.
why I
wouldn't be
questioned
surprised
it.
if he did
That's why I
both.
didn't know. There's only one weekly he decided to take away, and that was for Genki Cup. And that's why I'm questioning if he's
Well-
doing this one, because it's a cash tournament.
Yeah, he hasn't updated his weekly yet. Normally that would already be saying plus weekly 22. That hasn't been updated.
Yeah.
Um,
I wasn't able to get an answer. I looked through his Discord to try to find it. I asked a couple people. They didn't know either. So I was hoping maybe someone in chat had the answer for it and what times as well, because I haven't found any information on that. I guess I probably should have messaged him. But that's the only step I did not take. My bad on that. But yeah, I asked other people, but not Plus, even though like I've messaged on Discord many times. So Battlefy only has Crystal Cup, so if we're gonna base it off of that, we do know on August 7th, this Friday, Crystal Cup is happening at 7:30. We know that for an absolute fact. Which is going to be a pretty sick tournament. Can you link that in chat?
so many tournaments,
Yeah,
dude.
can you link that in
It's
chat
crazy.
for me?
Say
What do you
what
mean
time is this?
8th? It's Saturday? No, I just read it before the stream. It's 7th. Unless you switched it. I'm about to be really sad. Don't say it's the 8th. It's the 8th! Oh, I suck. Okay, so that means the weekly... See, it even says it. August 7th, 2020. It even says it in the picture. He had to have switched it, bro. I'm telling you.
Saturday, August 8th.
Yeah, but look at the picture up top.
Oh yeah.
switched it.
Sneaky,
He
sneaky
switched it.
Plus.
So, alright. Here is the tournament. What does that say? August 7th? Okay, yeah, August 7th. No, I'm just kidding. So, Saturday, August 8th. So it is a Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. I looked just before. He had to have done this like 30 minutes ago, I swear to God. All right, so it is a 10K Pansun entry fee. The top 50 players of the Crystal season, which is a seasonal thing, it was all of Tuckma. Get in with no entry. So he has the leaderboard down here. Anybody that is in the top 50 of this here get into the access without having to pay anything. So we have I think it's updated. Let me check. So Spectruhh, Adikar, I know Servo's up here because you did really well in the weekly.
I don't know if it's updated, but
right Servo is 54. Okay. So
well, this is for the Crystal season. We're on I think we're on Hoochik.
Oh yeah.
So any of the weeklies you don't get updated onto the Crystal season leaderboard.
Yeah, and it is going to be a $500 tournament on Saturday. $500 tournament, and it's 1 million Pansuns, including all of the entry fees. So it's going to be a lot of Pansuns, a real money tournament as well, and it's going to be fun. Check-ins at 7:30 a.m., not p.m. I was kidding. And then 8 p.m. Eastern time is when the tournament is going to start. So that means if this is Saturday, that means his weekly is definitely going to be on the 7th. I wouldn't understand why he wouldn't. Yeah, so on the 7th, we are going to real money trading. We are going to see the weekly on the 7th. And we also have Temporium Weekly. We are having another tournament. So now we're going to have, again, a Friday tournament, the 7th. We are going to have a Saturday tournament with the Crystal Cup. And we are going to have, on the 9th, the Temporium Weekly on the 13th. So, something to think about. 3 tournaments this week. Awesome. Love it. And
then on top of that, the 15th, too.
15th? Oh, yeah. So, the 15th, I didn't ask if, D-Mace, I know you're a part of Temporium, right? Can we show the trailer on stream? Are we allowed to? I'm asking you. You're speaking for all of Temporium right now.
No pressure.
And if you want, throw that link in chat. Why wouldn't I be? I don't know.
Throw it up. Let the people know.
Yo, Lucky and Zeus, thanks for the follow. Yeah, show it. I just need a link for it. I had it. The Roadhouse tournament. Roadhouse.
Well, you do have to worry about the music.
I'll mute it then.
Okay.
That song, DMCA. Got it. Alright, so Temporium. I had it up. I don't know why I don't anymore.
I got it now.
So we are going to full screen this, and we are going to watch this together. This is a big announcement that Temporium has for a tournament upcoming. So, yo, Wet Willie, thanks for the follow. All right, and let's watch this really quick.
Call it remix. Nah, 0.25 Blacko.
So we got the Roadhouse Rumble, 15th of August. We're bringing 10 Tems, and we are playing with 8 after we see the enemy, like the other players' 10 Tems. So the way this tournament is going to go is everybody brings 10, they see each other's Tems, they set up their items, they set up their Tems for those 8, and then they play against each other. The Roadhouse Rumble.
This
$1,000 prize pool.
This is going to be insane.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that we're having real money tournaments for Temtem, and then on top of that, we have a $500 tournament coming up, and then a $1,000 tournament coming up within the next couple of weeks.
Definitely.
And then on top of that, we can now bring 10 Tems.
Yep.
And be able to look and see, like, I mean, this is what I wanted. I wanted 10 Tems. Now that we have it, I have no clue what to do.
Yeah. I mean,
what do I put in my team?
I remember talking about this prior, like weeks ago or whatever. I randomly brought up the idea. It was a bad idea before, but now with more Tems, it's a better idea. Definitely was having Tem. Well, at first it started off as holding 6 Tems, having 4 on your sideboard. You can switch whatever you want before the match. But this one is you bring 10, you pick 8 from any of the 10, and then you go. So right now it's definitely it could be a better format. You never truly know, right? And yeah.
I mean, the counter potential. Imagine if you have 4 fires or something.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, dude. And you just literally full send and bring all 4. Like, it'd be such high risk, but imagine if they're like, oh, he's not bringing fire.
Yeah, so they are gonna have more information on it tomorrow. They're gonna probably have another update on it. If you want to hit up their Discord, I believe I have the command for it. Yes, check out their Discord, Temporium, and they will definitely keep you updated on all the information for their tournaments. Another thing to think about, I don't know if this is finalized, but for their weekly tournament coming up, there's going to be 4 groups, max of 64 players, and out of those 4 groups, the top player, number 1, makes it to the round of 4. So if there's 64 people, and there's 16 in each group, that means 1 person out of 16 is going to make it to the groups, and there's 5 Swiss rounds. Fix the link, my bad. I guess I might have clicked.
And this is the
weekly.
Roadhouse
the
Rumble?
weekly. So
for
I don't know if
Temporium?
they're having like if it's under 32 top 4, and if it's over 32 then it's top 8. So it's 2 from each group. I don't know if they're having a round of 8 or if it's just round of 4. But when I checked it, the groups, there was 4 groups, and then there was like the final stage, like the final stage of 4 players. So
That's interesting. I think I would like 4 groups and 2 from each group a little bit better.
yeah, I would say so too, because if there is a tie at the top, because it's 5 rounds, if it's 5-0,
Right.
then if there's 2 people tied, how does that work out? I feel like if it's top 2, if there's 16 players and it's top 2, that means the 2 people that are tied, which normally is only 2 people, will have to be up there, you know? So, yeah, that's something to think about. And then we also have the Fellow Tamers Minor Cup, August 22nd. We talked about that last week. It is also another one of Temporium's tournaments that they have. So we'll keep you in touch on that. Another real money tournament. So yeah, real money tournaments are coming in. It's becoming more of an esport, even though it's still in beta. Not all of the like content is out, so it's something nice to look at for sure.
Dude, imagine in the future, like, you know how Pokemon has like their events and everything where you go and you actually play at like VGC tournaments? Imagine if that's like what Temtem turns into, and like a year or 2 from now we're going to events and like meeting up at convention centers and stuff and playing games. That'd be so
I mean,
sick,
I don't
dude.
see why not, honestly.
I think this game has so much competitive potential.
Absolutely, and there's such a great community behind it. With like Plus and Temporium doing so much stuff for the community. Like Plus not only does competitive, but he also has like a lot of casual stuff, which is really cool. And he's been doing it since like what? He's on tournament 22 upcoming now, so that means 22 weeks that he's been doing stuff for the entire like community of Temtem. So he's been absolutely insane. The people like him and the people behind him, because I know for a fact that like they probably don't get nearly as much praise as well. They are absolutely amazing for the community, and I praise you guys 100% for doing what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. 22 tournaments, man. That's a long time.
True. And then Temporium trying to keep stuff fresh with creating ladders, creating tournaments. I believe they're like getting everybody together, and yeah, creating a really good organization. Very trustworthy in my opinion, and doing what they can to create stuff that's not in the game yet before it is created in the game, to kind of test stuff and make people see what there is to come to Temtem. So I like it a lot. I'm very happy for it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have such a great community, man. It's really awesome.
We don't have a League community.
No, we do
not have
not.
a League of Legends community.
We're a Valorant community. Great.
I'm not even gonna say that on stream. All right. All right. So thank you everybody for coming out. Yeah, Servo, last words.
Can't think of anything. You kind of just threw that at me.
Just like a conclusion. Just like a conclusion that you'd like to say before leaving.
Play more Tatter.
Play more Tatter.
I want to see it go
All
up.
right. Don't disappoint, Servo. Spectruhh.
So we also have the Ronin League day 2 tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't say anything about that. Oops. Yeah, we have Ronin League. Ronin is a club in Temtem, and 3 of us, Spectruhh, Servo, and I, are in Ronin. We have a Ronin League where we take Ronin players and we play twice a week, kind of testing ways that tournaments can be played. What we're doing is everybody plays each other one time on blue and yellow side, and the person who has the most wins takes the trophy. And then if there's a tiebreaker, whoever had the most kills throughout each one of their games, if they went 1-1 against each other, decides who takes first, second, or third, however the tiebreaker decides it. So tomorrow, more competitive content. I'm going to be commentating those matches. We have how many matches? 6 matches each day. So yeah, it is going to be streamed. I stream it on the channel here, Adikar, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. We did it yesterday for the first day. Second day is going to be tomorrow, and we're going to be doing this every week.
Dude, can we just talk about that match against Funky?
Oh my god.
Dude, I had the Ukama and the Volarin down to 1%, or literally 1 health, dude. I was losing full in that match.
1%'s very often here. So we are gonna end the podcast here. Thank you guys for coming out. Make sure to hit. What way do I have to point here? Yeah, Spectruhh over there. Make sure to hit him up on his Twitch. Hit him up with a follow. He plays competitive matches. Make sure to hit that follow for me as well if you'd like more competitive content. Yeah, podcasts, commentary for tournaments, and just regular show matches that we'll do every now and then. And yeah, just playing competitive matches in general. So I hope you guys enjoy your day or night wherever you may be. And we are going to be playing some ranked matches right now. So thank you guys for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate you watching.
Peace.